Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel, my lovely friends, and let's get into having a look at how to make these gorgeous, gorgeous little beads. I think I'm going to call these tornado beads. Caged wire wrap beads with coiled wire. You know, I mean, how simple can you get? Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So turn them into earrings like these, which we're going to learn how to make today, and use them for bracelets, use them for necklaces, use them for all sorts of things. How cute are these? So let's get into it. So shall we get going and have a look at how to make these little cuties? Aren't they lovely? I've used a variety of different beads and I'll show you as we're going along. So let's get straight into it. I think that's a good idea. You can use these for all sorts of things. So you're going to need to take your 1mm bare copper wire, or indeed any wire that you're using. I'm going to be making some of these in silver as well. And each piece of wire is 15 centimeters long. Just short of 6 inches, as you can see here. I'm working in centimeters today. So however many beads you want, cut your lengths of wire. And what we want to do is to turn a little loop on either, oops, come on, why are you not coming? Oops, throwing beads everywhere. I need to turn a loop on either side. Yeah, so I just come in with my round nose pliers. And at the very, very tip, like this, we just start off with a little P shape. And we're wanting a really nice, hopefully a nice rounded loop like that. So I'm just going to snip off the end, a couple of millimeters, and then just start to make a little loop at the end like this. And you want to do the same on the other side, but in the opposite direction, because we're going to be making this into an S, into an S-shaped sort of scroll type of thing. So again, on one side. So if you're doing a bracelet or a necklace and you need a few of these, then, you know, make it like a production line, which I often find gives you, you know, really good consistency of shapes and sizes and things like that. So do that with all of your pieces of wire, however many it is that you're using. The next thing we want to do is to bring in our 0.3. Now I'll leave all the gauge equivalents and everything in the description box for you so that I'm not boring you. And I'm going to take my 0.3 wire. Now I work off the spool to do this, and this can seem to some people rather tedious. Now if you wanted to take this idea and, you know, do it yourself and use a drill or some form of coiling machine, that's absolutely fine. I really enjoy the process of doing this. It's mindful, like the rest of my channel. Everything on here is mindful. So all you want to do is just to wind your 0.3 wire completely around the base wire, this wire here. So I'm just going to show you a little bit and then we'll meet back. So basically all I do is wrap this around and just keep everything nice and secure and squished up like this, and then I just spin it between my fingers like this until it coils around, and then every now and again I'll squish it up. So like I say, you know, you can do this mindfully like me. You know, I quite enjoy the process. If you're wanting to fire these out, you know, quickly, then it's entirely up to you. So I just wind it around like this. It's entirely up to you, like with everything else in life, you know, do what you feel is right for yourself. So if you want to use your drill, then you can do. All right, so I do that until the whole thing is filled. So I'll come back to you when that's done. And we're back. So I have completely covered my little wires here with my 0.3 so that we have a spiral. Sorry, not a spiral, a coil of wire around each of these. So we're going to make spirals now. Now my tip is to cover, where are my other pliers? To cover your square nose pliers, you know, your flat nose pliers with some tape. I think you call this bandage in the US. We call it sticking plaster here in the UK, just to not mar your wire, because you do need to get a bit of a grip. So you're going to need these. To start with though, I'm just going to use my flat nose and start to make a spiral, as you can see. Just do that on both sides. Now this coil will move around a little bit, it's fine, don't worry about that. You know, all organic, all handmade, doesn't matter. So then what we want to do is to make a sort of like an S shape. So I come in with my pliers and grasp it as tightly as I need to, but because we've got the tape on, it shouldn't mar the wire too much or squash it too much. So we just keep going like this, spiraling it around, keeping the spirals nice and tight if you can. Doesn't matter hugely because, you know, we will be separating those at some point. And then in the opposite direction, which is why we made these opposite directions, do the same thing, round and around. If you want to be really precise, you can, before you start, you can mark the center, you know, with a Sharpie marker, and spiral until you get to the middle. It's up to you, entirely up to you. But I just do it by eye, just because I like to live dangerously. Makes life interesting, doesn't it? Here we go. Right, so we'll have a look at what we've got here. Keep going round until they are equal. That look equal to you? Does, doesn't it? So just pull these in just slightly tighter, not too tight, you know, not too close. And this is what we're looking for. All right, so I'll just do one more. So I start with my plier here and just start things off. The center needs to be relatively controlled, and the reason I'm going to do both on the camera is that we can have a look at how to make sure that they're all the same size. So keep going round like this, keep going and keep going nice and tightly. So just keep spiraling them around. And as you can see, you know, you do have to replace your tape every so often, but I've found that covering your pliers in some sticking plaster tape helps a lot to, you know, not squash your wire or mark your wire. So as we are going around, take it by eye, and then, you know, you'll just sort of get to the point where you take your first one, you know, and measure it up against and see how it looks. You know, you can use the center spiral as a guide to see how much you need on either side. So I know I need to bring this in a bit more, and then a little bit more on the other side. So basically just, you know, make sure that they're all pretty much the same. And then, you know, lie one on top of the other and have a look, see if they're all pretty much the same. That one just needs to come in slightly more. But again, you know, it's not an exact science, is it? And they're really enjoyable to make. I think that one actually needs to come in slightly more. There we go. Perfect. Right, so the next stage is the fun part. Because I found that when I was doing this, that if you don't control the bend here, this center part, when you're looking at it actually on the bead, it will be a bit sort of bent. So be careful when you're doing this bit. So this is another fun part. So I've got my smaller pliers that I've taped, my smaller flat nose. I'm going to just hold it just here to start bending. So, you know, you can do this in various ways, but I've found that this part, holding it at this part here, means that you get a nice bend, a nice even bend. This is the part that you do it really, really slowly. Start to bend these two together, twist it around and hold the other side. Nice and gently. Nice and gently. So as you can see, we're closing things up on each other. When you get to this stage, I pop my plier in, my round nose, and squish up a little bit so that you create, I mean, you could do this at the flat stage if you wanted, it's up to you, but you know, I do it at this stage. Just pop your fingers on the wire really, really gently so that we're looking for this kind of thing. Okay, then come back in with your pliers and squeeze that in a little bit more. So this is the part that you do it really, really slowly. Really slowly. So all the time making sure that that centre part there doesn't look higgledy-piggledy. It looks nice and neat. There's room for manoeuvre. Don't worry too much if you just pull things out. Yeah, so that's that part. Now for this one, I'm going to be using my oval sparkly bead. Where are you? And what you want to do also at this point now is to create this loop bar here. So you can pop it through the bead and through the spiral. So I'm just going to cut off a little bit of 1mm wire. Like this. That should be enough, yeah. And then, how much is that? I'm going to say take yourself 4 to 4.5 centimetres. And then with my plier, just going to make a P shape here, because we're going to make an eye pin with my first mandrel on my plier, which is 2mm, a 2mm plier, 2mm mandrel, and then just put a little, so you have an eye pin. Right, so what we need to do next is to very gently pop our bead in the space. You can bring it in slightly more if you wanted to, and then the hole here, pop your eye pin through, and then very gently push these wires together. Do it really gently. And what we're looking for is to get that through that side. You see how that went right through the bead and then out at that side. So we have it on. Now obviously that looks a bit funky, doesn't it? So this is the stage where we need to just be very careful and pull our spirally wires into place. So I'm doing this really, really gently. Just manipulate the wire nice and gently so that it looks like a spiral, which it should. So you should have this, and then squeeze this end downwards. So it's almost like a bead cap, if you will. Squeeze it downwards around your bead. And this is what you should have. Isn't that gorgeous? And the last thing we need to do now is to close up this side. So with my first mandrel, it's just over 1 centimetre. So I do it by eye pretty much nowadays. So push that side up, take your mandrel and make your loop. So I can see that that's too long. Can you see how that's too long? We want the end of the loop to be really butted up against here. So all I do is take 1 millimetre or 2 off, and then try again. There you go, that'll do nicely. So it's nice and tight and squashed up against the side of the bead. How pretty is that? I mean, look at those. So shall we make these into earrings? I think we should. Yeah, they'd be perfect for earrings, won't they? Those ones, beautiful. However, I'll just show you the next one and how to place 3 beads in. So I've got 2 lilac sparklies here and an like an amethyst, cheap amethyst bead, but you know, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So I've got my little bead here and 2 small, these are probably, I think, 3 by 2 rondelles, but you can experiment. I've actually used 5/0 seed beads in these ones. Yeah, so let's have a look here. Just chop off, flush cut, and again let's just take a bit of wire and make our little eye pin. Oh, I've used a bit too much wire there, never mind, Sammy, doesn't matter in the slightest. I don't mind. There we are. So there's our eye pin. Okay, now then let's try making the squishing these up before I start to bend it. I don't suppose it makes a lot of difference. Yeah, it might be easier this way, who knows. Whatever suits you, whatever floats your boat is my opinion. So we'll just very, very gently and with control squish those bits up. Actually, you know, it's easier either way. You know, it doesn't matter. However you like with most things in life, you know, just choose to do it your way and run with it. Okay, so I take my flat nose here and then very gently start to move these 2 in on either side, nice and controlled and happy. All the time sort of double checking that everything's moving in the correct direction, that nothing's sort of getting angular and all squished up, because we do want this to be a nice gentle spiral, don't we? I think that'll do. So we have, you know, we have sort of this, the cage starting. Now then, it's a little bit more tricky with 3 beads. So you take your little rondelle or your seed bead indeed and pop your wire up through there and then find the hole of the seed bead. You see that? And then pop your 8mm bead on. And then the next thing we want to do is to very, very carefully start to close this up, making sure that everything stays in place until we get to about here, so that the 8mm bead won't pop out. And the next thing we do is just gently use your nail to pull that over, maybe slightly more. What we're wanting to do is to make sure that our little rondelle fits in there, so that when we put our wire through, it goes through the rondelle itself. Okay, I had to change the bead there, my friends, unfortunately, because the bead that I'd chosen to use, I should have checked, the hole was too small. So I was struggling to get it in. Anyway, so you just pull this top section up slightly and fit your second little crystal or your seed bead or whatever it is you're using into the end. So there's a lesson for you. Check your bead holes first. Pop it in the end, yeah, so that the little eye pin goes through. Now it looks a bit higgledy-piggledy again, doesn't it? Don't worry about it. This is where we start to squish things into place and make sure everything's nice and happy and move things around a little bit. Yeah, it's nice and malleable is wire, so that we can, you know, move things around slightly, pull things around a little, you know, and make a nice little spiral. So this is why I leave the mistakes in these videos, because, you know, it's easy to look at experts doing these things and they make it look so easy, don't they? And actually, when there's mere mortals like you and I just messing about with wire, you know, we have to keep the mistakes in to show that actually we're not We're not superheroes. unlike these experts wire workers that we see on YouTube that are absolutely brilliant at what they do. And I'm not. But anyway, there we go. So we'll just keep that in. So as we can see here, we've got our little beads, our beads encased. And again, that's just slightly too long. So I'm just going to take a little bit off that. Like that. And then just continue to close that up and make it into a longer bead with 3 beads inside, which we have here. How pretty is that? So again, you know, don't worry if things go a bit awry. So, you know, but lesson here, check the holes of your beads because sometimes they're a little bit too small. So there's our second bead. How cute is that? Just give things a little bit of a squish. So we've got a matching pair here too. So I'm going to be making these into earrings, I think. But we'll make some earrings out of these. Let's find some beads to go on here. Won't be long. So here I've found some absolutely gorgeous crystal 4mm crystal topaz bicone beads, which I thought would be really, really pretty as little dangles to go with these other gorgeous little beads. So I'm just going to make a really, really simple dangle. So, you know, you can do whatever you like. Use whatever you like, dangle whatever you like on the end of these things. If you don't want to dangle anything, then use, you know, a balled head pin if you wanted to. Whatever you like. Don't forget these are just ideas for you. So I'm just going to thread a couple of these little pretties on here. I love these little sparkly bicones. They're so pretty. And then I'm going to bend that away and then make a little loop to suspend off the earring, the bottom of the earring, like this. So we'll just open this up and hopefully you'll enjoy making these little gorgeous things. I think they're really, really pretty. You can make bracelets, you know, they can be great components for bracelets or, you know, little stations for a long necklace even, which is what I'll be using mine for. All sorts of beautiful things that you can do with these little guys. And I love the fact that they're just so much fun. So let's think of a name for these. I think I'm going to call these tornado beads because they remind me somewhat of a tornado, don't they, you? So look at those. How gorgeous are those? Beautiful. I love these. So have lots and lots of fun making these, my friends. Let me know in the comments how you get along. And, you know, don't worry about your mistakes. Keep them in there. Keep them in there and learn from them, I say. Have a lovely week and I'll see you in the next one.